Picture a man who never raises his voice, never threatens, never explains himself. And yet somehow you do exactly what he wants. Not because you're weak, not because you're stupid, but because he understands something about human nature that most people spend their entire lives denying. Machiavelli would not fight you head-on today. He wouldn't try to dominate you openly. He would let you believe you are in control while quietly arranging the pieces around you. And by the time you notice, the game would already be over. Power does not announce itself. It whispers, it waits, and it studies. The first thing Machiavelli would notice about you is this. You want to be seen as good, fair, reasonable. You want to believe your choices are yours, guided by logic and values. That desire alone already gives him leverage. Because people who want to be seen as good can be guided by guilt. People who want to be seen as smart can be guided by flattery. And people who want to be liked can be guided almost anywhere. He would never attack your strength. He would attack your self-image. He would let you talk first. Always. Because the person who speaks first gives away more than information. They reveal priorities, fears, and hidden motivations. While you explain, justify, and clarify, he listens. And every word you offer becomes a thread he can later pull. Silence to him is not emptiness. It is pressure. When you speak into silence, you fill it with truth. Machiavelli understood that most people believe power comes from being impressive, from showing competence, from proving worth. But showing everything you can do is one of the fastest ways to lose leverage. If people know your full capacity, they stop fearing it. Predictability is comforting, and comfort kills respect. So he would never show his full hand. He would appear capable but not exceptional, intelligent but not threatening, useful but not indispensable. Yet, because when people underestimate you, they relax. And relaxed people make careless decisions. He would let you feel superior. And while you enjoy that feeling, he would be positioning himself somewhere you didn't think to look. He would also understand something uncomfortable. Most people don't actually want the truth. They want reassurance. They want stories that protect their ego. So he wouldn't confront your illusions directly. He would reinforce them, slightly, just enough that you trust him. Once trust is established, influence becomes effortless. You see, people resist being controlled, but they crave being guided. They want someone else to make sense of chaos, to reduce uncertainty, to offer direction without force. Machiavelli would present himself not as a ruler, but as an interpreter of reality. Someone who understands how things really work. And once you accept someone's interpretation of reality, you surrender more power than you realize. He would never ask you to change everything at once. That triggers resistance. Instead, he would nudge. Small agreements, minor compromises, tiny steps that feel harmless in isolation. Because momentum is easier to build than persuasion. Once you've taken the first step, the second feels justified. The third feels inevitable. By the time you look back, you can no longer tell where you chose freely and where you were guided. Machiavelli also knew that people don't follow logic. They follow emotion and then justify with logic afterward. So he would never argue facts first. He would shape the emotional landscape before the conversation even begins. He would create a feeling, urgency, scarcity, fear of missing out, or the quiet anxiety that something is slipping away. In that emotional state, your brain stops optimizing for truth and starts optimizing for relief. And the person who offers relief becomes powerful. He would understand that nothing bonds people faster than a shared enemy. Not necessarily a real one, just a perceived obstacle, a threat, a problem that needs solving. Once two people unite against something, they stop questioning each other. So he would subtly point your attention elsewhere, toward a rival, a system, a scapegoat. Not loudly, just enough that your frustration has a direction. As long as you are looking outward, you won't look inward. He would also avoid moral arguments whenever possible. Morality is volatile. It creates emotional backlash. Instead, he would frame everything as practicality. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about how the world works. People accept harsh actions more easily when they believe they are unavoidable. Machiavelli believed that reputation is more powerful than reality. You don't need to be dangerous if people believe you might be. You don't need to be generous if people believe you could be. The appearance creates restraint in others, saving you effort. So he would carefully manage how others talk about him. He would let certain stories spread. He would allow ambiguity. Because uncertainty forces people to fill in the gaps with their own fears. And fear is an amplifier. He would never rush revenge. In fact, he would often let slights go, publicly, because people who react immediately look emotional. And emotional people are easier to manipulate later. Patience, on the other hand, unsettles people. It leaves them guessing. Why didn't he respond? What is he planning? Does he know something we don't? The mind hates unanswered questions. He would understand that generosity is a tool, not a virtue. Give too much, too often, and people feel entitled. Give rarely, strategically, and people feel indebted. So when he gives, it would be memorable, timed, unexpected. And when he withholds, it would feel instructive rather than cruel. Machiavelli would never demand loyalty. He would design incentives so that betrayal feels irrational. He would make alignment with him the path of least resistance, the safest option, the most rewarding one. People rarely choose what is right. They choose what is easiest to live with. He would also know when to disappear. Presence creates familiarity. Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort erodes awe. So sometimes he would withdraw. Let people feel the absence. Let uncertainty grow, because absence restores value. When he returns, people listen differently. He would pay close attention to timing, not just what to do, but when. A good idea at the wrong moment is useless. A mediocre idea at the perfect moment can change everything. So he would wait until conditions are ripe, until fear is high, options are few, and resistance is low. Then he would act decisively. And when he acts, it would feel sudden, inevitable, as if the decision made itself. He would also understand that people project their own values onto others. Honest people assume honesty. Aggressive people assume aggression. Kind people assume kindness. He would exploit this gently, allowing others to misread him according to their own nature. You see what you expect to see. And finally, Machiavelli would never let you know you've been outplayed, because humiliation creates enemies. Confusion creates dependence. If you believe events simply unfolded the way they did, you don't seek revenge. You seek explanation. And he would be right there, ready to explain. This is how power works when it doesn't announce itself. This is how influence operates when it feels like free will. And this is why Machiavelli wouldn't need authority, force, or titles to outsmart you today. He would simply understand you better than you understand yourself. And that is where the real game begins. He would also know that most people confuse confidence with certainty. So he would never sound unsure, even when he is. Not because he knows everything, but because hesitation invites challenge. And once people challenge you openly, your authority becomes negotiable. Certainty is contagious. Doubt spreads faster. So when he speaks, it would feel settled, calm, as if the decision has already been made by reality itself, and he is merely reporting it. People trust those who appear aligned with inevitability. He would understand that rules matter less than who enforces them. Laws, policies, morals. These are flexible in the hands of those who know when to bend and when to stand firm. He would follow rules when it benefits him and invoke them loudly when it benefits him even more. Consistency is not morality, it is a strategy. He would never compete directly with someone stronger. That's how amateurs think. Instead, he would change the terrain, shift the rules, redefine what winning even means. While others fight on one battlefield, he would be building influence somewhere else. Power isn't about strength, it's about position. He would also understand that people fear loss more than they desire gain. So instead of promising you something new, he would make you afraid of losing what you already have. Status, security, belonging, identity. Once loss enters the equation, rationality collapses. He would frame choices so that resistance feels dangerous. Not overtly, subtly, a raised eyebrow, a delayed response, a change in tone, enough to make you wonder if you're risking something you can't afford to lose. And you would adjust without being asked. Machiavelli knew that anger clouds judgment, but resentment sharpens it. so he would never humiliate you publicly. He would correct you privately, praise you publicly. Because public humiliation creates enemies, but private pressure creates obedience. People forgive what they don't have to defend. He would also manipulate pace, speed things up when people need time to think, slow things down when people want resolution, control the tempo, and you control the emotional state of everyone involved. Urgency creates mistakes. Delay creates fatigue. He would use both. He would study who people are when they're tired, stressed, or excited. Because character doesn't rev, saying what people say about themselves. He would trust what they do when they think no one is watching. Promises are cheap. Patterns are expensive. He would never threaten directly. Threats give people time to prepare. Instead, consequences would appear suddenly, framed as unfortunate outcomes rather than intentional punishment. It's not personal, it's just how things turned out. That sentence disarms more resistance than any threat ever could. He would understand that people crave significance, to feel chosen, included, seen, so he would create inner circles. Not formal ones, informal ones, the kind that are never announced, only sensed. And once someone believes they are in, they will work harder to stay there than they ever would to get in. Exclusivity is one of the strongest psychological levers that exists. He would also know that people don't remember facts, they remember feelings. So even when delivering bad news, he would focus on how people feel at the end of the interaction. Relief, gratitude, hope. Those emotions overwrite the content. People forget what you say. They remember how you leave them feeling about themselves. He would cultivate ambiguity about his intentions, clear enough to inspire confidence, vague enough to remain flexible. Because clarity locks you in. Ambiguity keeps options open. When people don't fully understand your motives, they hesitate to oppose you. He would also understand that appearing too perfect creates distance. Flaws, carefully chosen ones, create relatability. So he would reveal minor weaknesses, harmless mistakes, self-deprecating humor, just enough to lower defenses. A controlled imperfection is more trustworthy than flawless competence. He would never argue with someone who is emotional. That's wasted effort. Instead, he would validate their feelings without validating their conclusions. Calm them first, redirect later. People listen only after they feel heard. He would also know when not to intervene. Sometimes allowing chaos to unfold weakens others more than any action could. While they scramble, exhaust themselves and make enemies, he waits, conserving energy, observing. Power grows when others burn themselves out. He would pay attention to who talks the most and who listens, who reacts and who pauses, because real power often sits quietly, letting others reveal themselves. Noise is usually insecurity trying to sound important. He would understand that loyalty bought with fear lasts only until a safer option appears. Loyalty built on mutual benefit lasts longer, but loyalty built on identity lasts the longest. So he would tie alignment with him to who people believe they are. Not support me, but this is who we are. Once identity is involved, logic becomes irrelevant. He would never publicly celebrate victory too much. Triumph creates resentment. Instead, he would frame wins as collective efforts or necessary outcomes. Because people tolerate success better when they don't feel overshadowed by it. Envy is a silent killer of alliances. He would also know that people lie more to themselves than to others. So he wouldn't expose lies directly. He would create situations where self-deception becomes uncomfortable, where reality quietly contradicts the story people tell themselves. When people discover truth on their own, they defend it fiercely. He would never rely on a single source of power. Money fades, status shifts, allies change. He would diversify influence, social, informational, psychological, so that if one pillar collapses, the structure still stands. Dependence is fragile. Networks are resilient. He would understand that asking for small favors increases commitment. Once someone invests effort, they rationalize it by increasing loyalty. So he would start small. A quick task, a minor alignment. Nothing that triggers suspicion. People justify what they participate in. He would also understand when to walk away. Not every battle is worth fighting. Some people are better left alone, isolated by their own behavior. He would conserve resources for conflicts that actually matter. Power isn't proven by constant engagement, it's proven by selectivity. He would manipulate contrast. After tension, offer calm. After strictness, offer kindness. The emotional swing makes the relief feel stronger than it objectively is. Control the lows, and the highs feel like gifts. He would also understand that people test boundaries unconsciously. Small acts of defiance, subtle challenges. He would respond decisively, but proportionally, not too harsh, not too soft, just enough to reset expectations. Unchecked behavior becomes precedent. He would never explain himself excessively. Explanations signal insecurity. He would state decisions briefly, confidently, and move on. People fill in the justification themselves. Authority doesn't argue, it declares. He would also understand that fear of isolation is stronger than fear of punishment. So he would never isolate someone himself. Would let the group do it. A shift in tone, a change in access, a subtle exclusion. Social pressure does the work quietly. He would cultivate patience in a world addicted to speed, because patience allows you to see patterns others miss. While people chase short-term wins, he would build long-term positioning. Time is a weapon for those who know how to wait. He would understand that people respect boundaries they don't fully understand. So he would be warm, but not open. Approachable, but not available. Clear, but not transparent. Mystery preserves authority. He would also recognize that power doesn't come from controlling people. It comes from controlling outcomes. If people feel free but arrive where you want them, resistance disappears. Freedom is often just a well-designed corridor. He would never need to remind you of his influence. The most dangerous power is the one you stop noticing, the one that feels like common sense, like reality itself. And by the time you realize how much of your thinking has been shaped, your language adjusted, your decisions nudged, you wouldn't feel angry. You would feel foolish for thinking it was all your idea. That is the level Machiavelli operated on. Not domination, not intimidation, but quiet authorship of events. Where history moves, people react, and he stands just out of frame, untouched. Because the ultimate form of power is not forcing others to obey. It is making them believe they already chose.